Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome back to USC Upstate. Welcome to University Day. This is an exciting time for us, the start of a new year, a year with all kinds of incredible opportunities and possibilities, what I anticipate will be our best year ever. To get us started on the right foot, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our Chancellor, Dr. Brendan Kelly.
It is a great year, and I anticipate that it'll be the best year ever as well. Couldn't be more pleased to have so many people gathered together. This is how you're supposed to launch a new academic year. We should all get together, compile that positive energy, and then send it out to the people in which we are in service to. I am excited to be here with all of you, and I would be remiss. We have one person who generally is not in this room, but I need to make sure I welcome her, and that's my girlfriend, our First Lady, Dr. Tressa Kelly. I'll tell you, we got a chance on Sunday during Move Up Day to go and welcome an awful lot of people into our university community. It was pretty special to be able to sit with legacy families. William graduated in 1983, and now his daughter Elizabeth is starting with us. To sit with one of the 5 valedictorians that we have among our freshman class, moving in, so excited to be part of USC Upstate and choosing to be part of this university community. I'll tell you, fiscal year 18, our last year, was a pretty exciting year in my view. USC Upstate as a university is becoming. We're in a state of becoming. We are growing and maturing, and that's a unique experience. We've talked about it before. Not every university in the country is in the same situation we are. We are driven by a sense of momentum right now, and a lot of what we did last year was actualizing being the architects of our own future. I want to spend a little bit of time this morning talking about some of those accomplishments, because I think they're things that every single one of us get to take an awful lot of pride in. First, and it's not something we would normally celebrate, I should probably report back to you on legislative outcomes. We are a state university, and when you're a state university, the legislature is a very important player and stakeholder in what we do. And normally, I would come back to you in a black cape, maybe with a hood, something that looks like the Grim Reaper, but not this year. This year, we have some things to celebrate out of this legislative session. First, we got the largest increase in recurring dollars that we have had in over a decade. That makes all the difference in the world in the things that we have to do moving forward, because affordability is a key piece of what we're doing, and that allowed us to have one of the lowest tuition increases in the state of South Carolina this year. We also came back from the legislature with $3.5 million, the first capital funding we've had in more than a decade, toward the renovation of the labs in the Smith Science Building. That money doesn't get us all the way there, but it is a huge step in the right direction. And I'm grateful to the legislature for taking their universities and their responsibility to them seriously in that regard. We also accomplished something pretty great, I think, and that is we developed the strategic plan for the university. We brought together 500 stakeholders from throughout the Upstate so that we could set the course for the university moving forward, and that's the way it should be done. We are a public asset. We are an asset that belongs to this region and is in service to this region. And when we came out of that planning period, we had an opportunity to set a course, a series of priorities, and to understand one simple truth, and that is, and it's not only our responsibility, but it's also what I think we are probably best at, and that is creating transformative opportunities for students. We successfully retooled and launched a brand platform, Up. It's the foundation to tell our story, and that's a critical piece of what we need to do in the public sphere is tell our story. Up is driven by optimism. It captures the energy of the region, and when we say that, we say it captures the energy of Charlanta. Up is where we live because millions of people pass by exit 72 a mile from here every year. Up is where we live because of the amount of investment that's going on in this part of the country. Up is where we live because the population of Spartanburg County, of Greenville County, and of the Upstate generally is growing at a rate that outpaces almost any other place in the United States outside of Florida. But let's keep it clear. You only moved to Florida to retire. People come here to create. That's a different energy. Our place is one of our greatest assets. And that storytelling mechanism, that narrative framework that comes along with Up, gives us a great brand that helps us tell our story. To be great, we all have to tell that story together. And I know that so many of you are doing that all of the time. You do it in your neighborhoods, you do it when you wear our emblem, you do it when you interact with others at this university and set a standard for what professionalism looks like and the way people should treat each other. Up is where we live, and the optimism has to continue to drive our narrative, our experiences, and our outcomes. We get to celebrate today, our largest freshman class in the history of this university, 1,030 new first-year students. We have 2,042 new degree-seeking students at USC Upstate this year, and possibly, because we have to wait, Vice Chancellor Stewart tells me, the largest enrollment that we've ever had in the history of this institution. Oh, we should all be happy about that. We should all be happy because growth matters. Growth matters. We have to be in greater service to the upstate of South Carolina. We have to be producing more bachelor's and master's degrees, and we can't do that unless people are going to school here. And to accommodate that success, to make certain that we can do that at a higher level, last year, we completed an academic reorganization, coming together as a university to review the way we're organized for the first time in 15 years, even though I believe every university should do it every 10. We successfully created the College of Science and Technology, as well as the College of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences, focusing our academic efforts with disciplines that speak the same language, at the same time decreasing the cost of administering academic affairs. On October 9th, we're going to celebrate the grand opening of those colleges. It's an important shift in what we do, and it's an important shift in how this region views our university. We want to make sure we celebrate that in public. We renamed the School of Education. Yesterday, I sat with Dean Reynolds at one of our local schools, and we talked about the fact that now it's the School of Education, Human Performance, and Health. And the principal and the teacher in front of us said, well, of course, those are all so interconnected. How can we accomplish education if we don't put health first? And as a public university, as the only regional comprehensive public university serving this region, aren't we the ones who should be a resource in providing thought leadership and solvency so that we can affect positive change in this region on those fronts? I believe we should. And refocusing that college allows us to do that. We created a Center for African American Studies. Ladies and gentlemen, we serve about 40% of a student population from underrepresented populations. That's a point of pride. And when we do that, we should be providing expertise and thought leadership to the region. And we get a chance to do that in a more fundamental way the way we have been doing for a long time, by elevating that course of study into the center of African American studies. We created University College to ensure that this institution was positioned to increase retention and graduation rates. Progress toward degree is critical for us. It's one of the most critical functions that we have. It is wonderful to celebrate 2,042 new degree-seeking students at this institution. Our challenge is to make certain that as many of them as possible graduate with a bachelor's degree. If we want to create transformative opportunities, we have to get people undergraduate degrees so that they can go and function in the American economy. University College gives us more flexibility to do that. It is the assemblage of all of the component parts in academic affairs that support student progression toward graduation and allows, under one dean, collaborative, synergistic atmosphere to work with every other element in academic affairs and throughout the university to make that happen. Last year, we launched multiple new degree programs, making us a better resource to this region and to this state. The MS in Business Analytics, which will go live this year, we finished the process of mounting that degree program last year. It will be the only master's degree in Business Analytics, one of the most sought-after credentials in the American economy today, the only master's degree in that area in the state of South Carolina. We launched a BA in chemistry to go along with the BS in chemistry. And when you are the largest producer of nurses in the state of South Carolina, and we are, you also are one of the largest producers of students who will not be getting into nursing school. We've got to take responsibility for that. And our science faculty, our chemists, creating a BA in chemistry provides another track to success for a population of students that are in dire need of it. We created an undergraduate concentration in supply chain management in the Johnson College of Business and Economics. We're one of the only places in the United States that has an inland deep water port and are a stone's throw from some of the largest manufacturers in the country. I think it's important that we provide education in supply chain logistics, since all of the nation's universities combined offering that education will not meet the employment needs of this of industry throughout the country over the next 10 years. And finally, we revamped the MED and provide an MED in Applied Learning and Instruction out of the new School of Education, Human Performance and Health. And I have to share with you, we had to go and defend these programs. We had to go and defend these programs. Sometimes we operate in a very insular fashion as a university. We had great discussion about each of these programs as we went through our shared governance process here. Holly Pay and Elizabeth and I were talking about it the other day. Those were great conversations. It was great to see all of our academic enterprise coming together and saying, yes, this is where we're going next. But that is not where it ends. Because after we finish that process, then we have to go and defend those choices and those actions at the state level. And I'll tell you, it was great to do that with the MED, because we sat in front of the Commission on Higher Education. And they said, why do you possibly need to be providing this degree? Well, our master's degree was really only affecting K through 5, and that isn't really the training that the school districts that we are serving most needed. We needed to do K through 12. They said, but there's already another university in the state offering this. Isn't that enough for the state of South Carolina? Isn't that enough education for the state of South Carolina? Dean Reynolds and I sat at the table with 4 superintendents. They said, how many people actually are interested in taking this master's degree? And one of the assistant superintendents who was standing in for a superintendent said, well, I guess I can answer that. She said, you know, I can't only account for my school district, one of 7 in Spartanburg County. And she said, I asked my 500 teachers last night before we came to this meeting, just a little straw poll, who would be interested in taking this master's degree over the course of the next 24 months? 109 people. 109 people out of one school district. There is a yearning for new opportunity in the upstate of South Carolina, and we need to provide it. We successfully assembled the funding and launched the renovation of the library. Now, keep in mind the image that you see on that screen is a beautiful one, and next fall we will be celebrating it. But I just want to let you all know it's going to be super inconvenient for the next 12 months. I have tried to make certain every single student that we are in service to who's coming to this university sees the new coffee shop and bistro that will go in the library, but not today. Today it's tables and shelves and the like. I will also note, probably not a detail I need to share today, but the high-density shelving is going to arrive in the middle of September, and we'll do that transition in the middle of September. I'm sharing that with all of you so none of you send me an email and complain about the renovation in the middle of September. We successfully launched the transition of USC Upstate Athletics after 10 years in the Atlantic Sun Conference at the Division I level into the Big South Conference. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a big deal. It's a big deal because we have 250-plus student athletes who missed 1,200 classes last year, who did not sleep in their bed an awful lot of nights because they were just too far away in New Jersey or in South Florida. And this year, they're going to be back in the classroom for those 1,200 classes. They're going to be able to go and compete against Presbyterian, UNC Asheville, Gardner-Webb, and Winthrop in conference play, be back in their own bed that night. We're going to save an awful lot of money that gets to be reinvested in creating an excellent experience for students. And I should note that excellent experience includes things like the fact that this is our 8th consecutive semester with a cumulative student-athlete GPA of above a 3.0. We successfully launched the beginning of our impact agenda. It's work that this university's been doing for a long time. It is work that this university's been doing for a long time. But we laid the foundation for an institutional impact agenda on wellness, equity, and civility, one that faces both internally and externally. And those areas of focus, those themes, will continue to drive a lot of our decision-making and the actions we take moving forward. And I say we've been doing this work a long time because outward-facing centers like the Center for Child Protection Training, it didn't just get started last year. Last year, we trained 2,445 people in that critical area of study to make better teachers, first responders, and quite frankly, better leaders throughout our region. We had a chance to create a safer campus last year. We had a lockdown. I did mention to the faculty yesterday, by mistake, it might have been a lockout. It was not. It was a lockdown. Back in Detroit, lockouts were much more common. But it allowed us to create a safer campus. It allowed us to create a safer campus by coming together afterwards, reviewing how things went, figuring out where our gaps were, and we filled in a lot of those gaps. We created card access for almost every single building on campus so that we can lock them down with the push of a button from the public safety office. It also gives us a chance to track entrance and exit from buildings in a more efficient fashion. We started putting signs in classrooms. And Bridget Kirkland, who I've celebrated in public before for coming up with that idea, you'll note just outside of this door, you'll see what room number this is, the ballroom, what the street address is, and the number for University Police. It's in every one of our gathering spaces on campus. And when you're in a lockdown, that matters. Because if I gave you all a quiz right now of what the street address of this building was, we would have the highest failure rate in the history of this university. We continue to review those emergency management and safety procedures. Our campus beautification efforts, quite frankly, I don't think our campus has ever been more beautiful, but it's also as intentional as anything else that we do. And it's often evidenced by the quiet and quite incredible work that goes on and is launched from facilities, landscaping, and our custodial staff. And thank you all for the work that you're doing to make us a better university. Our campus is a treasure, and a treasure is something you should be able to navigate, so we were able to, and I know it sounds plebeian, put in place things like entrance signs, signs that you can read from the road so you know how to get to enrollment. Pedestrian signs. It's difficult now to walk on the campus and get lost. I know that was a fun game we used to play with new people. We're going to have to find other sources of entertainment. Over the course of the last year, we revamped university advancement under the leadership of Dr. Meredith Brunin. We tried to enhance our philanthropic efforts and put ourselves in a position to be on the receiving end of others' generosity. Private dollars are more important than they ever have been in the history of higher education. And I could not be more pleased to announce that we had more than $4.5 million in gifts, pledges, and planned gifts in the last fiscal year. That is a 260% increase over the previous year. And finally, we did the thing we do best. We graduated over 1,300 students and put more bachelor's and master's degrees on the street of this region. We have accomplished a lot. That is the most important thing we accomplished at all. But I believe we're just getting started. I believe we're just getting started because we put a lot of things in place that were really just the foundation for success. Now we have a chance to go and operationalize that. So what does success look like moving forward? Because that's the big question. We have a strategic plan, we have strategic priorities, we have objectives, but they have to have actions that go along with them. And when we achieve the right actions, we have to know that that was when we were successful. And that's what we'll talk about next. We need to be totally focused as an institution, in my view, on outcomes and on purpose. Our mission is access, affordability, and opportunity. Access, affordability, and opportunity. We're a regional comprehensive university in the public sector. We need to provide access to higher education. We need to make certain that people can have access to it through affordability. And we need to make sure that higher education is the highest quality product possible, because that's where opportunity comes from. We pride ourselves, and we have to pride ourselves on who we graduate. Not who comes in, who we graduate. That's our responsibility. And we live in a tough political environment for higher education. We live in an unfriendly environment for higher education. All of us gathered this morning so that we can take pride in the work we do and the institution we serve. There are an awful lot of people out there who are trying to diminish what we do. And it's important that we are always able to tell the story of those transformative opportunities. The fact that we are the creator of those transformative opportunities by nurturing people. That's what defines our strategic plan, because I believe it's what also defines our university community. That's why we have so many talented people who work here. Our long-term business plan needs to focus on outcomes related to that mission. We have to grow. We have to grow. Our target right now is 10,000 students, and the minute we hit 10,000, we'll start focusing on the next goal. But we know there are too many people living in the upstate of South Carolina and not nearly enough of them with higher education. We have to be a source of innovation, of academic innovation. We are not mired in the weight of our own history. We have the opportunity to do that. And we have faculty resources and expanded provost council and colleagues throughout this institution who are working on that very thing. They're working on innovative modes of program delivery, on increasing access to online programs, especially in a state, Rob McCormick shared it with me the other day, especially in a state that has rural areas that are outperformed by Bulgaria in the way, in our social and economic mobility standards. We have a serious responsibility in the state of South Carolina to innovate the types of sections that we offer, hybrid delivery modes, when we offer instruction, under what circumstances. There are very few limitations. The only limitation on that front are those that we create for ourselves. We have to commit to soft skill development. When you are a primary server of first-generation college students, we have to make certain that they have core professional communication competencies, perspective competencies. Those 8 competencies that we highlight in the strategic plan that come from the National Association of Employers and Colleges are key for us to infuse throughout this institution. And I don't care whether you're working in enrollment and registering students or you are a professor and you are educating students, we still have to stay focused on a firm handshake and looking people in the eye, having a global thinking and perspective, an ability to write, an ability to speak. We have the ability, and I think we're well on our way, to be a thought leader in public scholarship in the state of South Carolina and throughout the South Atlantic region. We are already one of the most progressive universities on that front, and we have more to do. We have to be a university of choice, and being a university of choice means in the long term, every day, our business model has to be built around audience-centeredness, not self-centeredness. Audience-centeredness, what is good for the people that we are serving. And finally, we have to stay focused on long-term financial sustainability, which is the least fun goal that you can have. But it's also the one that builds the university to last. We also have to focus in, and we talked about it when we launched the strategic plan, on accountability. We have to have accountability structures as an organization that allow us to know how we're performing. Strategic plans don't mean much unless you have accountability structures to go along with them. And part of my job is to ensure accountability is a key component of our way of doing business. That's a lot of what I have to do as your chancellor, to ensure that everybody makes their contribution to the university in the appropriate fashion and in service to the desired outcomes. However, I have to, as part of my job, also ensure that I'm accountable to the institution. That when strategic plans are put in place and strategic priorities are set, that we as a community have a clear means of evaluating our progress. And that's why when we launched the strategic plan in February, I announced that we were going to partner with Studer Education. Studer is a very interesting company. I know the founder, Quint Studer, and he became notable in the healthcare industry. There aren't many hospitals in the United States of America that are profitable right now, that are high performing, who haven't been visited by Quint Studer when he ran the Studer Group. They would go in and focus in on a continuous model of improvement that really focused on patient satisfaction. If the patient was satisfied, then that was probably trickling up through the rest of the organization. We want to make sure that we borrow from that same wisdom. So I want to introduce you to a friend and an expert who's been working with us since March, Dr. Janet Pilcher from Studer Education. Take a good look, folks, because you're going to see her often. She's already been working with leadership throughout the institution. Almost 90 leaders have gone through 2 leadership development institutes over the course of the last few months. We performed an organizational assessment so that we could get some baseline data on what our leadership thinks about this institution and where we are at. We also performed an employee engagement survey that all of you received. That employee engagement survey had a 52.4% response rate from our full-time employees. 52.4%, remember that number? Because I hope that when we do it next time, we're up in the 75 or 85% range. I say that because when 52.4% of your full-time employees respond to an employee engagement survey, it is really important for us to listen to that data, to accept that data, to accept the problems that come along with that data, and then to accept the solutions that we have to implement to change. And we listened as a group of leaders. On our employee engagement survey, you told us that it's great to have a strategic plan, but what's next? And that's the right question to ask. So this year, our next step is really to operationalize that strategic plan. Why is this important to do? One, because we have to live our mission. We have to live our mission, we have to live our values, We have to live our vision for what this university can and should be. 2, we want to determine what success looks like for USC Upstate. We are part of the University of South Carolina system, but success for USC Upstate doesn't look the same as success for USC Columbia. Doesn't look the same as success for USC Aiken. It's unique to us, and we have to know when we're trending in a positive direction. We also need to know when we need to adjust. We want to have a way to hold all of our leaders accountable for our success metrics, because their decision-making, and when I say leaders, I don't mean myself and the executive team, vice chancellors. I mean all of our leadership. That's about 90 people at this institution. That includes head coaches of our athletic teams. It includes our directors and our department chairs. We want to make sure those success metrics get to everyone. We need to provide a roadmap so that every employee knows where they fit in to helping to build Upstate in its sense of excellence. So the scorecard is what we're introducing next. You heard me talk about it when we launched the strategic plan in February, but the scorecard is a critical piece because it defines the destination, the success metrics that we have, the places in which we are trying to perform, and the destination defines the path. It allows us to intentionally create our future. We want to create a work environment that engages faculty and staff and students to be their best. And to do that, we have to have a transactional dialogue all of the time. It means that we need to nurture a culture of feedback, discussion, and debate. I believe that we are doing that and moving in that direction. It means that we're going to have to administer an employee engagement survey every year. We have to have data comparisons. We have to be able to say, we're getting a little better year over year, and here are the particular priorities in terms of areas of strength or weakness. And that's what that survey tool allows us to do. So what precisely are we doing? We're finalizing the organizational scorecard for USC Upstate right now. It will be aligned with our strategic goals, and I will reveal that and release that to everyone with lots of explanatory data in September. It will include clear definition of all of our success metrics. This is how you can judge my accountability toward achieving our success metrics. The organizational scorecard is really mine. All of the vice chancellors will then get scorecards aligned with their divisions. Those scorecards will then cascade down throughout all of the other leadership in those divisions. And they will be posted publicly for all of you to see and track as we go forward. It's called evidence-based leadership. If we're doing a good job, then we should be able to set a goal, and when we achieve the goal, say, that's the goal we all set, and we got the result we desired. The scorecard will support the executive team's work, it will support leadership's work throughout the institution, and my hope is that it creates an opportunity for our collaborative work to provide the best for students, for our employees, and for the communities we serve. Periodically, we will engage in strategic improvement conversations. Now, as everybody in this room knows, I go and visit with every unit. That's a form of strategic improvement conversation, but it's dialogic. We need to be more pointed in some of those, so we will add other instances where we get a chance to do that. And that's where the how will we do this comes in. First, we create the organizational and executive team scorecards, and then those cascade down to all of the leaders. That structure has to be in place. It has to be in place because we have to allow units to be able to inform what success looks like in their unit. We had a good conversation with colleagues about this the other day. Why is it so important that we have an expanded provost council that includes all of the department chairs and all of the officers inside of academic affairs? Because at the end of the day, when we want to create success in an academic unit like the Mary Black School of Nursing, that's going to require some different things than it will if we want to create success in facts. Everybody has to be focused in on translating the organizational scorecard down the line into their own unit success. This will give us a chance to measure how divisions are doing with strategic actions. It will allow us to help across divisions when we see areas of weakness. And we will hold, in partnership with Studer Education and Dr. Pilcher, 3 leadership development institutes over the course of the year, focused only in on that data. The second piece comes in University Council. University Council is another body that I announced when we launched the strategic plan in February. And in September, we will finally put it in place because it goes right along with the university scorecard. University Council will consist of faculty, staff, and leaders. They'll participate in quarterly strategic review sessions. The University Council will do 3 things. 1, it will review all of the results for our success metrics to date. 2, it will review the progress of aligned actions, what we're trying to do in service to those success metrics in order to achieve results. And 3, and most importantly, University Council will be able to provide feedback. It'll help produce insight into what we continue to move full speed ahead on and areas where we need to modify our approach. We have to be a dynamic organization. What I described to you is a process that I believe will get us there. It's a proven process. It's a disciplined process. And that's precisely what we need as an organization. For us to gain insight and focus our attention on our 3 strategic priorities, we need a disciplined process. And those priorities are critical because they came out of those 500 stakeholders that we are in service to. Over the coming months, we are going to start to live and die by that scorecard process, ladies and gentlemen. It will be one that all of you have access to. It will be one that all of you participate in to one degree or another. Most importantly, we'll all be accountable to it, and that begins with me. So what do we do moving forward into this fiscal year in service to that process? Fiscal year 19 is really about building capacity, about strengthening this institution and strengthening our competitiveness in our market space. And that is one of the most important things that we have to do. It's about the 1,000 small actions that make us stronger and more productive, a high-achieving whole. Market space is critical. Market space is so critical because that's what defines our mission. Who are our competitors? Our competitors are not colleges like Wofford. Our competitors are not universities like USC Columbia. Our competitors are regional comprehensive universities. If you want to go and pay $56,000 a year to go to college, be my guest. We've got a great one right down the street. And if you want to go to an R1 for a bachelor's degree and have the unique experience that comes along with that, that's fine. That's why we offer those products. If you want to have a bachelor's experience where Andrew Beer knows your name, he knows your number, and he knows when you didn't show up for class, we're a great place for you to get an education. That market space is where we have to become more competitive. Competitiveness is about the intentional investments of time and people and money to drive particular measurable results. So we want to enhance competitiveness through the strategic plan. First, we have to focus in on growth. Growth is going to come in 6 targeted populations. First, transfer students. And we were one of the, if not the, largest receiver of first-time transfer students in the state of South Carolina last year. That population for us is only growing. The FTIC population is a critical one for us to stay stable because it's not growing in the United States and it's certainly not growing in the state of South Carolina over the next 10 years. But keeping a large class of freshmen is critical to who we are. Building out our online student base. For the first time in our history, we are now beta testing digital marketing, which is where online marketing occurs, which includes things like geofencing. If you're not familiar with geofencing, imagine that we have, and I'm just making this up, an online RN to BSN program, and you only advertise digitally, so I see it on my phone when I'm looking at Facebook, which we know a lot of people do at work. And it's our advertisement, and the only people who are receiving that work in hospitals. We're able to target our marketing that way and build that online population. We just launched 2 what I would call new master's degrees. We have to build out our graduate student population and target it. We have to focus in on highly talented students. That is one of the core mark makers at a university, is highly talented students, our athletes, our actors, and our artists. And we have done a good job, but we need to start moving toward doing a great job. And adult learners. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe there is a yearning in the United States of America for people to have an undergraduate degree. There is a yearning for that, and many of those people went to college. They didn't complete. Many of those people are adults because they had 2 kids and they had to work, and we didn't make it that easy to get in, and I hope we're the university that can do that. We target those 6 populations. We get a chance to achieve growth. Growth comes along not just with student body, but also in our personnel. Since January, we've added 28 new full-time faculty members. 28 new full-time faculty members. 6 started in January, 20 started yesterday, and 2 start in January. We have 28 brand new international students on this campus coming from 18 different nations. That's a total of 75 international students that we are hosting as a university right now, and it's the most diverse representation of nations in our history. We have to continue to produce new academic programs. Those academic programs create new opportunities, and if we're not focused on continuing to do that job for this area, we are the ones who are failing our region. 3, we have to focus in on retention and graduation rates. If we really are a university that prides itself on who we graduate, then we need to make certain we're taking responsibility for our role in that all the way through, from the time you get a brochure until the time you get your robes for commencement. That's a different approach than we have been taking, because we need something that is a little more intrusive and a little more global. We need to be more collaborative, more strategic in terms of advising. And collaborative because all of us play a role. It's not just one person who advises a student on what to take the next semester. It's a whole host of us advising students how to be successful through college. Retention and graduation is a team sport, and we need to name a leader of that team. So I have asked Dr. Kim Purdy to lead a task force that will take into consideration every function at this institution to improve our graduation and retention rates in the 6 populations that I just defined. We generally only use the retention rate that's reported to iPads to the federal government, and that retention rate only considers first-year college students who have never been in college before. It's a relatively small population. What about the person who transfers from another university after their 2nd year? Shouldn't we measure that and take responsibility for it? What if it's our athletes and our actors and our artists who are leaving their junior year? Don't we want to know why? And if we can make certain that they can be retained, that task force led by Dr. Purdy will take on those particular measures. And why is it important? I'm going to tell you why it's important, because there's 3 basic metrics. 1, we're the 5th largest producer of degrees by hundreds over number 6 in the state of South Carolina. The 5th largest producer of degrees in the state of South Carolina. If you take into consideration the 1,364 universities in the United States that measure how we perform in terms of raising economic and social mobility for graduates, from the time they start with us to when they graduate and then what becomes of them, we are in the top quartile in the United States. We are the 304th best university to attend if you want to raise your state as a disadvantaged student economically in terms of economic and social mobility. Transformative opportunities should include graduation. We have to have a commitment to professional development for students. And I believe that we should start with student employment. We can expand the number of student employees we have, but we can also hold those students accountable. They are yearning for more. Sitting in the front row right now, we have students who work in the administration building. And I'll tell you, Sharon, who is the tallest student we have in the room right now, stand up, Sharon. See, he's not as tall as Coach Dickerson, but he's pretty tall. Sharon is a young man who I've assigned research reports to complete. And Sharon's turned that around to us in the same way that any full-time employee would in a day. Sharon gets to carry that experience forward with him. I get to write him a letter of recommendation and be somebody who can really recommend his skill set because he has proven that he has professional skill. Why can't we give that to as many students as possible? And I believe that we can through student employment and partnership. Public scholarship is critical to us. It is something that we are already good at, but we have more work to do on that front. Yesterday, I got to attend for a few minutes a workshop we had on public scholarship to help fill the toolbox of the wonderful scholars that we have inside of our intellectual capital. And I'll tell you, if you want an explanation of how to contribute as a scholar to the larger community, I would ask you to visit with Dr. Lisa Johnson because she gave a really beautiful introduction to our sense of purpose as a university. It allows us, through public scholarship, to increase our thought leadership and our visibility building. It also gives us access to new grant dollars, because partnership are where a lot of grant dollars are going, and we're the type of university who can engage in it. We have to increase the number of partnership and engagement opportunities that we have to impact local and regional policy. In many ways, our intellectual capital not being involved in that conversation hurts the region. We have to have intentional involvement, and we already have a lot of it throughout individuals and units in this room. We're involved in regional conversations with Spartanburg Community Indicators Project and 10 at the Top, the Spartanburg Academic Movement, Spartanburg Regional Health System, the Hispanic Alliance, the Urban League, which I will note our own Stacy Mills has just been put on the national board for the Urban League. Competitiveness also requires us to make sure we master our market space. Do you want to know what the number one thing on our employee engagement survey was? Our lowest performing point. And that's the stuff that I'm most focused on and that all of our leadership is most focused on. And what I'm about to say is not going to be surprising to 90 people in this room because they already know this data because they saw it. Dr. Pilcher walked us through it. The number one thing we are lowest rated on, I believe that I am paid fairly in comparison to my peers at a peer institution. That's our number one lowest performing point as an institution. I want you to make note, I'm the one who told you. Because now we get to talk about what we're going to do about it. Working for the state has a lot of benefits. We close a little bit in December. We still pay everybody. We have a family-friendly environment. You are around incredible colleagues who are, we hope, supportive. But that doesn't mean that that solves all of our problems. We have to be more competitive when it comes to compensation. We have to accept the data, accept the problem, and accept the solution. We do not have the capacity, nor will we ever, to be the Apple Corporation or Google. And if you're interested in working for something like that, I encourage you to go do so and we'll help you. We're the state of South Carolina. But that doesn't mean we have to accept less than. And it doesn't mean that because we're USC Upstate, we have to accept less than. We can be fair. And that's going to be our goal. Fair in our market space. We are a regional comprehensive university. We have 198 other universities around the country that we get to compare ourselves to who sit in the exact market space in terms of scope and size. We have to be fair in the way in which we compensate faculty, and we have to be fair in the way in which we compensate staff. Those are two different things. When we compensate faculty, we really are in a national marketplace, and we need to compare what position somebody is in to a peer institution and get those averages, and then be able to say, you can't leave this institution and go to one of those peer institutions and do the same job for more money. At least not substantially. It should be fair. we're going to make that happen. For staff, it is a little different because some staff exist in local economies and some positions are in regional economies, some are statewide, and some are national. So we have to analyze those workforce segments. There are 12 or 13 of them to make sure we hit the right midpoint. And not just hit the right midpoint, but also hire at those midpoints. It's one of the most frustrating things that happens are when you're in a position and somebody else gets hired into that position and they get paid more than you do. That's not fair. It's not going to happen overnight. But starting this year, we'll make the first investment. We'll have to do it for 3 fiscal years, fiscal year 19, 20, and 21, to effect change and rebalance salaries at this institution. And it hasn't been done with the rebalancing and the hiring rates, I think, ever at this institution. Our hope is that we get a corrective in place and we have a new business model for the way we go forward so that at least one thing we can erase from our employee engagement survey is that we're not fair. I will tell you one thing. That's not everybody. You know, some people, when you do that comparison, they get paid more than their peer institutions. That's okay. We're not going to change that. But you shouldn't get paid less. And those are the adjustments we're focusing in on. I know it'd be more exciting if we just did an across-the-board raise, but that doesn't make us a better university. And I hope that all of you will come along on that journey as an institution so that we get to a fundamental place as an institution where we can be satisfied with who we are, and that is fair. Those adjustments will be made in mid-year after we've had a chance to lock enrollment and go through that process. We have to, absolutely. That will not be the last approach we make to compensation. It is just the first step in becoming a better employer. Our commitment to professional development has to be a stronger commitment. One, we just had a professional development workshop for faculty on public scholarship. We have, over the course of the summer, put in place mental health first aid. We've taken most of leadership through it right now, especially on the academic side. We are going to make certain that every employee who encounters students goes through mental health first aid training, because there's no more important contribution that we can make to really understanding how we can help people unless we understand mental health first. If you ever want a second education and where that begins, go through training at the Child Protection Training Center, and you can see that often it begins early. We are going to continue on. We started down this road last year, beta testing civil treatment, bringing in a company called ELI to really work on workplace civility and making certain that we have conflict resolution, are equipped for conflict resolution across the institution in the right ways. And finally, we just added a lead 3. We have a lead 1 and a lead 2, and many supervisors around this university have completed those trainings. We added a lead 3 for non-supervisors. Those who are interested in a supervisory position but not in one, it's time for us to start training people like that. It's time for us to make those investments. It's just like on the compensation piece. If you get paid fairly, that's the thing. You get paid fairly and you go, but I had higher ambitions than that. That means you need a different job than the one you have. And that's okay, because we want to help you get there too. That's why the USC system just implemented the Academic Leadership Fellows Program so that we can start building up people's capacity to lead in the future. We have to increase our institutional visibility. We've spent the last year laying the groundwork for all of that. I can tell you that will include, I believe by the end of September, the renovation of the website. Jessica Blaze, Eric, and many others have been hard at work getting the type of support we need to get that piece right. And I believe we are close to reset. But we have a lot more work to do on the institutional positive visibility front, and I think we have all of the pieces in place now to be able to move forward with that and get outcomes that I think we've desired for a long time. And that will include completing our Carnegie Community Engagement application this year. We have to increase our fundraising outcomes. It is a serious area of focus, and over the coming year, we're going to get more people engaged in that process. But the most important thing we can do to contribute to raising money is not going out and creating relationships with donors. It's not going out and anybody in this room asking for money, because if you asked for money from anybody without going through Meredith Brunin first, that would be a serious problem. I just want to say that. It's you doing such a good job that people are excited about the university and they want to be part of it. That's the contribution that everybody in this room makes, and then we focus the rest of it. We have to focus in on placemaking. Placemaking is important. We are a great university, but we're a better university when we have a sense of density. The photo that you're looking at, this has never been seen in the history of this institution. It is people sitting in the Hodge lobby. Last time there was a picture taken of this, it was a metal park bench bolted into the floor in the lobby. That's the same seating they have in prison. We have to create more places to sit. Vice President came to me from another organization who works with us. She said, this university reminds me of George Mason when I went. George Mason is a fantastic university just outside of D.C. She said, this reminds me of George Mason when I went. I said, why is that? She said, because there's no place to sit. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, when I went to George Mason, I got out of my car, I went to class, I walked out of class, and then I went back home. I said, why? She said, because there was no place to sit. She said, I went back a few years later, and all of a sudden there's places to sit. There are people around. They're talking to each other. They're studying. They're making friends. Why didn't we do that? We had a lobby in the URC that you could play football in. And it had 2 chairs. They didn't match, and they were from somebody's living room. So we invested in creating more places to sit, just to try to create density. The URC is a great place for people to study. If you're a non-traditional student and you don't want to go to the inconvenience of the library over the coming year before, it is fantastic. You can go to the URC because there's places to study. There's places to gather. There are places to contemplate. The Hodge Lobby provides us space for study, for gathering. I mean, we have academic departments in that building and 250 student athletes who are forced to go down and see Jake Roy, who, quite frankly, I got a chance to work out with Jake Roy. I'm still mad at him. They are in that building all the time. They should be able to sit. They should be able to take advantage of the beautiful landscape that we have. They should be able to sit and lay in hammocks. It might look lazy, but you know you're jealous. They should be able to find whatever place they need that inspires them on this campus. And that includes the George, it includes our space in Greenville, and it includes the renovation of the library. We need more places to sit so that we can build density. And that's going to include more places to eat. We're going to change out every dining option on campus and renovate the cafeteria this year. I know you're all excited about that, but the students we have up front, they're the ones who are really excited about it. We have to be a better place to live, just like we have to be a better place to learn and to work. There's 1,000 things for us to do moving forward, 1,000 things. The institutional scorecard is critical, but I'll tell you, and I think this hopefully will shape our year. I read an article in the New York Times a number of months ago. I shared it with a few of my colleagues here. And it was called When Your College Has Your Back. And described a university that took responsibility for the success of those students. Not in a way that coddled them, it's a way that nurtured grit. But it also said, we play a role and we can screw it up. We should be the university that has people's back. We should be the university that when people graduate and they say, what was USC Upstate like? We want them to say, they had my back the entire time. We want our community to say that. We have your back, Upstate, as a region. We have your back, student. We have your back, student athlete and student artist and student actor. We have your back, fellow employee. And we have your back, graduate. That's what our goal is. Our goal is to be that university. And every action that we're planning on taking this year is really in service to that type of institutional maturation. We need to get better, just a little better every single day, individually and as an institution, and that's going to take the contribution of all of us. I will say I am incredibly honored and privileged to lead this institution. I am grateful to have the opportunity to work alongside so many talented, smart, invested people. That's what makes a great university. And as corny as it may sound, it's also how you deliver on the promise that up is actually where we live. Thank you so much for gathering this morning and all of the work that you do.